Today, with the first pick, we're talking mock drafts. My first mock draft for the 2025 NFL draft cycle is live on CBSSports.com. And breaking news, Rick has some thoughts. We'll also take a look back at week 0 college football, specifically quarterback play from Florida State and SMU. We'll also hit on some week 3 of the preseason in the NFL. Take a look at how some of the young quarterbacks did in the final tune-ups. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's Rick Spielman. And I'm pumped to have 24/7's national recruiting analyst Cooper Petagna joining us. Got a chance to work with Coop last spring in the run-up to the 2024 NFL Draft. And, Rick, I'll just say this. Good luck finding someone who knows as much about these players we'll be talking about in the coming weeks and months, because he's been following these dudes for 2, 3, 4, 5 years before they even get on our radar. Coop, thanks for joining us, buddy.
I appreciate it, man. The privilege is mine. Fired up. I was telling you I couldn't sleep last night. I am fired up. A lot of these guys coming out the 21, the 22 cycles, so it feels like a culmination of a lot of things finally bubbling up here in this draft.
It's going to be fun. Rick, what do you think?
Yeah, Coop, don't worry. I slept fine last night because I'm fine. It's like I wake up at 3 a.m. with a splitting headache because of Ryan's mock draft that he actually put out we'll have to correct, but we got plenty of time. Speaking of that, Ryan.
Oh, well done, Rick. All right. This is episode 174. We do a little bit here, Coop. Before we get going, Rick, how many days for the 2025 NFL Draft?
Did you know that there are 240 days until the 2025 NFL Draft and 240 days to fix this mock draft that Ryan had to forcefully put out there due to contractual obligations?
You know what's funny, Rick? Coop texted me yesterday and he said, "This is a pretty good mock draft." And then I talked to you. All right, we'll get to the mock draft. But first, let's talk about week 0 in college football. And then we'll hit some young quarterback news around the NFL. And then we'll spend the majority of the time on the mock draft. So let's get to this thing. Hit the like button, subscribe, 5-star review, all those things to help Rick keep a roof over his head, because that is very important. So, Rick, I'll give you the honors. Let's start with you, because D.J Uiagalelei wasn't the problem at Florida State, but our concerns are forward-looking in terms of what it looks like in the NFL. So what were your thoughts on the way he played in his first game for Florida State over in Dublin, Ireland, the game they ultimately lost on that last-second field goal by Georgia Tech?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do love his size. What I don't like is I don't think he's a great athlete. I don't think he can make plays with his legs. He does have enough arm talent, but it seems like he has to put his body into the throws to make throws. I thought his accuracy at times flashes, other times it was inconsistent. I do respect him taking him down in the fourth quarter to tie the game at the end. He led him on a drive down there, but I just can't get excited every time. I've watched this kid at Clemson, everywhere he's been. We've watched him talked about him last 2 years, and still see the same holes and weaknesses in his game, especially the mobility, especially the processing, especially the long release, where I see NFL DBs are going to get a jump on these routes just because it takes them so long to get the ball out of his hands, and the accuracy issues. I just don't know. When you watch some of these quarterbacks, and we watched all these rookie quarterbacks this year in the preseason, it looks like they have that it thing to them, or they're on time, they're in rhythm. I just don't know if this kid's footwork or anything else will ever get into that mode that we're seeing. Even your Spencer Rattler, who actually looked halfway decent through the preseason.
Cool. Let me ask you this, because I basically scribbled most of the notes that Rick's talking about there. It said I felt like he struggled to see the whole field, and he felt like he predetermined his throws. And Rick's talked about this last year. He plays too robotic at times. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was he number 1 to C.J. Stroud's number 2 when they were coming out of high school? Does that sound right?
I believe so. I still wouldn't with the network yet, but yes, I think somebody screenshotted that the other day. You know, that obviously always gets thrown back in your face, but
yeah.
No, I mean, I would agree with Rick. I give Georgia Tech a ton of credit. I thought they had an awesome game plan just in terms of the interior pressure that he felt throughout the game. But, you know, I think DJU for a long time, since his time in Clemson, now at Oregon State, I think Jonathan Smith did actually a pretty good job with him. He's been that same guy. But I do think you have to take into consideration that right side of the offensive line really struggled. And then losing Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, obviously not having those two guys on the perimeter. It's not like Florida State has backfilled that position relatively well. You know, they bring over Malik Benson from Alabama. They have guys like Jaylen Brown, young redshirt freshman they brought over from LSU. Outside of Lawrence Toafili, they were missing some really kind of multi-dimensional pass catchers out there. But yeah, in terms of DJU and FSU, I mean, I put it on our show last week. Is he a guy you win with or because of? I think he kind of falls into that win with category. And if you're Florida State going into the offseason, I thought it was pretty interesting. If you're trying to get back to the point where you're 13-0, competing for a college football playoff title, then the environment around him in terms of the protection and the playmakers had to be exactly right. I don't think that's the case. So it only kind of magnifies a lot of the weaknesses that we saw in week 0.
You make a good point. And Rick, I'm guessing you would agree, but you can certainly speak for yourself. Guys weren't getting open. When you watch the guys at the top of the route when he's at the top of his drop, and I looked this up, DJ was blitzed 12 times, 41% of his dropbacks. He was 7-10 for 87 yards, only took 1 sack. But only 3 of his 27 attempts were more than 20 air yards down the field. I think part of that was where he was looking, and part of that was he didn't have a ton of time. He can improve, but Rick, right now, he feels like if we're just being asked to be pinned down on this, like a day 3 guy.
Yeah, oh, God, yeah. If a day 3 guy, maybe late, because even Joe Milton, where'd he go? A 6th round? This guy has nowhere near the physical ability that like a Joe Milton has that we saw out of Tennessee. So I just know, for the guy that has played this much college football, Clemson, Oregon State, now Florida State, it's not the same trajectory we've seen Michael Penix Jr. or the same trajectory we've seen Bo Nix. Those guys continue to elevate their game even when they went on, but I still see the same guy that I saw at Clemson 3 years ago.
Do you remember who our comp was from a year ago?
I think I told him to move to tight end.
Stop it. All right, I'll give you the comp, Coop, and you tell us what you think about it. Because I actually agree with you, and this is going to make Rick angry because he doesn't like it when I agree with him about things and he steals my comps. Felipe Frankish.
That was me, wasn't it?
It was both of us, but yes, I'll give it to
you. Yeah. When have you ever came up with a comp that good?
Well, let's see. We'll see. Coop, what do you think of the Felipe Frank area comp?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a compliment, right? Felipe Franks ended up moving to tight end, obviously, with the Falcons.
There you
go. Yeah, there you have it.
And look, man, DJU and Coop, you know better than us. It's supposed to be a great dude, and he's saying all the right things. But just in terms of what it looks like for him at the next level, there's some progress that needs to be made, I think is what we're saying. All right. So he's not the reason they lost that game. Let's be clear about that. And credit to Georgia Tech, as Coop noted, because they came ready to play. Let's turn our attention to Preston Stone. And I actually reached out to Amanda Guerra, our colleague, CBS Sports, because she was working sideline that game. Because, and Coop, I'll come to you first. I didn't know Preston Stone's backstory just because I wasn't watching him because he wasn't coming out. He broke his fibula in November, I believe. And when I was watching the game live, I was like, why in the world is he coming off each and every series? But Coach Lashley made it clear that was the plan. He is their starter. And my overall take on his game was he looked rusty. He looked a little, I don't want to say nervous, but trying to find himself after not playing for a long time. And then he turned it on at the end there, and he made some big boy throws down the field. Even that first interception, the very first throw, you could question whether the wide receiver did his best to be in position to either knock the pass down or catch it. I came away pretty impressed with the way Preston Stone played in his first game back in months.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting going back and watching. I watched the game live, and 17 of 30, 254 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. First passing attempt of the game ends up getting intercepted. But yeah, you go back, you look at the story, breaks his fibula in November, third to last game in the season, and this looked like a guy trying to figure it out. He also looked like a quarterback that knew that they were favored by 24 points. And they were struggling against Nevada. I think in the second half, he started to really kind of trust his legs a little bit more, especially coming off that injury. I like the way that he moved around. The ball came out quicker. I didn't really think he was anticipating well in the first half. He threw 4 or 5 balls that you could argue should have been intercepted as well. So the stat line comes out a little bit more unscathed than it was. But the thing that really kind of stood out to me watching him is when they needed him, he turned it on. I thought the deep ball throw to RJ Maryland in the back of the end zone late in the second half of that game, and then also the deep shot with the go-ahead touchdown. That kind of showed a little bit about what he's about, his moxie, his ability to extend plays. So I thought he did some good things. He's a really good athlete. That's the first time I've really gotten to see him play, but a little bit fast is kind of what I thought about him, from the way he moves around the pocket, extend plays to his eyes. Everything felt a little bit quick, but certainly a fun game and an intriguing one. He's going to be a guy that I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how NFL evaluators kind of see him long term.
Rick, you want to hear my comp now or after you talk?
God, no, wait till after I talk because I don't want to lose my concentration.
All right, what do you got?
So I'll just be honest with you.
Oh boy.
At the first quarter, I'm like, what am I doing with my life right now watching this guy? Because he's absolutely horrendous.
Stop it.
I don't think he completed a pass in the first quarter.
The very first throw with the interception, who do you blame on the interception?
I'm going to blame him. So
okay, fair
just
enough.
because I didn't like him in the first quarter. So,
okay. All right, then what happened?
Then he got better. I'll agree with that. I still think he is, whether he's a good athlete or not, that's yet to be determined. Maybe I didn't know he was coming off a broken leg.
Yeah.
But he did move a lot better in the second half. I do question his arm strength looked better in the second half, but I was always trying to see, does he throw any throws like outside the numbers from the opposite hash? And I understand the collegiate hashes are wider, but every one of his throws outside the numbers were to the same side hash, which means it was on the same side, so it's a lot shorter throw. His accuracy did get better. I thought his deep balls floated on him, but then in the fourth quarter, it looked like he knew what the hell he was doing, to be honest with you. So I give him credit for going into Nevada. And it is a higher elevation, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not. But when they were down in the fourth quarter, and he brought them back from behind and then threw that touchdown pass with, I think, a minute some left in the fourth quarter to go up. I gave him credit for the moxie, and you can see that he has a little bit of good stuff in his neck. I can't say the S word on air, but he does have some of that. A little bit of a Jake Haener type to me in the second half is what if I'm going to make a pro comp, something similar to that. First half, I wouldn't even put him in as a draftable guy the way he played. So maybe
you didn't know he had broken his leg either, though, right?
No, I didn't know that either. Yeah. So I think it's a kid worth monitoring. I think the best, he's a day 3 guy. Depending if he plays like he did in the second half. If he's in the first half, he's just a B-level free agent to me.
Yeah, well, hopefully he doesn't break his leg again, so we don't have to worry about that. By the way, you've now stolen Felipe Franks and Jake Haener.
God. Come on, please.
Coop, grade the Jake Haener comp. What do you think about that?
I like it. I had 2 guys in my mind because I figured this would come up in conversation. Haener was one of them, who we had at Washington before he transferred to Fresno State. And then the other one was kind of, there's 2 inches apart here, but a little bit of Stetson Bennett, but not as poised. But just in terms of being able to extend the play, guy that you have to respect in terms of the legs. Maybe you don't have the game plan around him, but he was active, moving around, extending plays out there. So those 2 kind of came up.
I think you guys would both agree that Stetson Bennett has some stuff in his neck.
Yeah,
very much.
But he just has to remember that the defense wears the opposite color jersey that the offense wears.
Stop it. All right.
I'm sorry, Scoop. I'm supposed to be the smart arse on the podcast.
Oh, I think he got that.
I'm picking that up.
Yeah, he's picking up what you're laying down. All right. Producer Harry tells me we got to take a break. So take a quick break. We'll come back, and then we'll turn our attention to the NFL before we get to this mock draft talk right after this.
America's Service Academies kick off their seasons right here on CBS Sports Network.
All right. Rick, we're talking to Anthony Richardson. We're talking Bryce Young. Finally did something that was worth talking about. And we'll talk a little Drake Maye. So I'll come to Coop first on these because he has the backstory in these kids, and he can give us sort of the build up to what we'll talk about and what we saw on the field last week, Rick. So let's start with the Anthony Richardson in Cincinnati, Coop. I thought he looked pretty good. He had the 1 interception. I think it was a miscommunication between him and Granson. I don't know if it was an option route or a pivot route or whatever, but he threw behind him, and it was a pick 6 to Jordan Battle, I believe. But arm strength's there. He misses some easy throws he should make. Does this all sound familiar to his days at Florida and maybe even in high school?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, he's I sent you the video last night, which is pretty crazy of him in high school and just how far he's come really as a passer. But I think the biggest question mark is, how anticipatory, how instinctual is he as a passer as well? He does some pretty ridiculous things. I think the arm talent, just, upper body, obviously a guy that relies on that a lot. The footwork kind of stands out, not always in a positive way as well. Went back and watched the game from this past weekend. I think just reps with him. But at some point, as Rick has kind of pointed out, you kind of are what you are. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see the game plan that they put around him, what he's going to be like this year with a full year, kind of healthy, with some guys around him. Pittman, they bring in A.D. Mitchell from the draft as well. So he's always been a freak of nature. He was a guy that you could categorize as somewhat raw coming out of high school. But there's been some strides there. Just kind of eager to see kind of what that looks like on Sundays.
So Rick, Coop mentioned that he sent me a video. So I saw some snaps when Anthony was in high school, and he's made huge strides. But I mean, he's still incredibly raw. So that's encouraging. But are you expecting him to be where he needs to be for this team to win, or are we still got to wait for some things?
First of all, I have to ask.
Oh boy,
you have these coup meetings without me all the time. This little coup thing here. Coop comes in and has a coup meeting. He's only been on the show one time.
Name. Coup is in the name.
Before he went up to the Ivy Tower, and Harry, you guys all have these little side gigs going on.
You want to hear why, Rick?
Come out here, yeah.
Because it was after 9, it was after 9 p.m.
Okay, yeah, then don't call me.
I'll send you the videos, but it was after 9 p.m. You can watch.
I'm fine because I already have my opinion on Anthony.
You just want to get that out there. By the way, Anthony in high school was 6'3", 233, so he grew about an inch and gained about 11 pounds at Florida, just so you know. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, bud. That'll make me sleep better at night too.
There you go. Now you're fully informed on your scouting opinion. What do you got?
I thought the first series, I would have put this guy at a Pro Bowl level, the way he played. I loved his arm talent. I understand his footwork, but boy, can he torque his body and make some off schedule and different platform throws that a lot of NFL quarterbacks can't make. But then there's, as Paul Harvey said, the great famous, and then there's the rest of the story. So after that, he missed some throws, especially on the deep crossing route because of his footwork in the pocket. He tries to improvise too much. It's the interception. I'm going to blame the receiver because it looked like it was an option route and he turned out, but the ball was already out of his hand as the receiver was turning out. The receiver should have just settled there. So I'm giving credit to Anthony because he got the ball out of his hands on time.
Sorry to interrupt you, but if you watch the play as soon as the ball leaves his hands, Anthony puts his hands on his head.
Right.
So it wasn't like he was surprised by the wide receiver's reaction. It felt like.
Yeah, no, it was a train wreck. It was like you're watching a train and a wreck getting ready to happen, and he knew it was going to happen.
It happened
and resulted in a pick six. But it's just like you saw in college. Some games you watch that first game against, was it Utah? This guy is unique talent-wise. And then you see some other games, and it's like you scratch your head on how can he miss that throw or why is he doing that? So I think he had gotten better. I think they're going to do a lot of RPOs, a lot of pass concepts to get the ball out of his hands quickly with slants, things like that. I think they'll utilize his unique athletic ability. Hopefully learn how to take a slide. I still think this kid has tremendous upside. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think Steichen is the right coach for him he did a tremendous job with Jalen Hurts because Jalen Hurts had some same issues coming out and Jalen Hurts got better as Steichen coached him. So I think that he is with the right coach and the right system and will continue to ascend. He just got to not be as inconsistent, which we've seen in college. And now we've seen so far in his very short. I mean, technically he's a rookie this year is what he is. So
but you're encouraged by what you've seen, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That first series, I was like, this guy is the real deal now. But then the rest of the story comes in the longer he plays.
All right. Quick dollar bet. If you want to, you don't have to take it. Who has a better season? Anthony or Will Levis?
Anthony.
Oh boy.
Just out of principle.
Our colleague Pete Prisco has been beating the Will Levis drum, Coop, for what feels like 10 years now. So I think that's why Rick's incredibly stubborn about that. All right, so let's talk Bryce Young. And I'll just say this off the top. His footwork looked night and day from last year, and I think that's a good starting point. He made a ton of off-platform throws. He was 6 of 8 by the time it was all said and done. The ball came out on time for the most part. He did hold the ball one time, I thought, too long. On the scramble to his left that he threw to Deontay Johnson, I love that play. I thought the Bills had done a good job initially of shutting down what was mesh and I think rail. But let me ask you this, Coop, and if you don't mind, give me the story that you were telling us just before we started the podcast about Bryce Young and the overlap and intersection with Drake Maye in terms of their college choices.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So Bryce Young signed with Alabama in 2020. That was Nick Saban and Steve Sarkisian. But before that time, Drake Maye was committed to Alabama at that same time. Maye came out in 2021, later decommitted from Alabama, goes to North Carolina. That opens up the quarterback spot in that 2021 cycle, which ends up being Jalen Milroe. So all these guys, I feel like are kind of interwoven at some point and cross paths. But yeah, just interesting to go back and kind of see what could have been.
It's crazy looking at these videos because everybody knows about these players, Rick, except us. So maybe we should start doing high school evaluations as well, since we got nothing else.
Yeah, I'm not talented enough to figure that out.
I don't know how they do it. Yeah, well, absolutely.
We can't figure it out either. Don't worry.
So Rick, tell me about Bryce, and then just follow it up with Drake, so we can get through these and get on to the more important matter at hand. But I want to get your thoughts on Bryce and Drake, because obviously Bryce is a year further along, but positive things for both, it felt like.
Yeah, no, I thought Bryce, I was like very frustrated why he didn't play in the first 2 preseason games. And I was very excited that he played in the 3rd preseason game. So Dave Canales knows what he's doing. He turned around Geno Smith. He had a lot of success with Baker Mayfield in Tampa, and it looks like maybe this will go along his success track record with these quarterbacks that have struggled. Maybe this will be Bryce. It looked like the system fit him a lot better, a lot more decisive. The one thing I will say is I watched Anthony Richardson first, and then I watched Bryce, and there's a difference in arm talent now.
You think?
Yeah. There's a little bit more RPOs or RPMs, whatever the hell the thing's called, miles per hour, whatever, coming off of Anthony's hand and Bryce's hand. But he was on time. He was in rhythm. It looked like this offense fit him more. Now, I'm going to say this statement. Okay, I think Dave Canales will be as good for Bryce Young as Mike McDaniel was for Tua.
Holy Moses. That's by the way, I want to know, that's impressive. I meant to mention this earlier. Guys were getting open too. That helps if you're a quarterback.
No, it helps when you have Deontay Johnson and you have Thielen opening up. And, I think Mingo's going to be better this year. So
Jatavian Sanders caught a pass.
Yeah. So they got guys that a little bit more athletic to at least can get some separation. But they're doing things that Bryce does best. They got him outside the pocket some. They ran some pistol and some play action. You don't ask him to sit in a pocket like Dan Marino that's 6'5" and try to throw, through the trees up front. Even though I do think he can find the open windows. But they're doing a lot of things that I think he looked a lot more comfortable, at least in this brief showing. And we'll see when the varsity starts playing in a couple weeks here. But it looked a lot more encouraging than we saw last year during the preseason.
Here, I'll ask you this specific question. Knowing how bad this offensive line is in New England, especially the tackle position, and despite the fact that Drake Maye's played well the last 2 preseason games, would you start him in week 1?
No, I would start Jacoby Brissett, because if you start Drake Maye, you can't go back.
Right.
If you start Jacoby Brissett and they struggling, then bring in Drake Maye. I still think the one thing I understand, he even looked better this week than he did last week, but he has so many hitches in the pocket. By that, I mean, he's stepping up, but he's hitch. He's almost walking into the pressure. So I think that he showed improvement from preseason week 2 to all through the preseason. He's gotten better, but I would not start him, especially with the offensive line and with the receiver talent around him. I would wait and let Jacoby Brissett start. And then when it's the right time, then bring him in. But if you go with him early and he struggles, then you can't turn back. And then it's going to be, do you ruin this kid because he is I don't know the mental part or how psychologically, because if he struggles, the social media, the fans calling him a bust right off the bat, can he just mentally handle all that? Where if you do it the right way, because they don't have a lot of talent around them, like we saw with Bryce Young last year, which was Bryce Young was labeled the biggest bust in NFL history, according to some of our colleagues. So I would make sure that I would start Jacoby Brissett first.
I actually tend to agree with that. All right, Harry, let's slide with that graphic. I got a little surprise for you, Coop. I want to get your thoughts on this. So this is from 32 Beat Writers on Twitter, and this is actually pretty interesting. I gave to Rick early because if I don't give homework to Rick early, he hems and haws on the show. So Rick, you can have your thoughts here, but Coop, you got to build a team for folks listening. We have a rookie grid of quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends, and you got $10, Coop. You got to build a team of all 4 positions. And if you want me to go first or Rick to go first while you think through it, or if you want to do it on the fly, I'll let you do it. But I want to get your thoughts on how you're sorting these guys out, because you know all these guys better than we do, probably.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. The question that I was going to ask you guys first is kind of out of those 3 guys, Richardson, Bryce Young, and Drake Maye, who was the one that you came away the most encouraged with, after watching last week?
I think I know what Rick's going to say. I'm going to say Bryce, Rick.
I'm going to say Anthony Richardson.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah. I mean, Rick makes a good point about Shane Steichen, that marriage, because it feels like a good one. And Dave Canales' track record is a good one, but Bryce felt like, to Rick's point, it took so many steps back last year that you almost felt like they should have stuck with Andy Dalton when they started him, just to give him a break. And when you talk to people that are no longer with the organization, they said there were too many cooks in the kitchen, basically. So, all right, AR 5 for you, or 15, whatever number he is now, and I'm taking Bryce.
I honestly, I like Maye. I didn't know what to expect, but I kind of like the way that he was moving in the pocket. I like the command. He's a big physical kid. I kind of like the background on the kid too, with the brothers that played at a high level in North Carolina and the dad. That's what I find interesting. I agree with everything you guys said about, all right, can you throw him out there, what that's going to do to his mental makeup and that type of stuff, especially if you can't protect him. I agree with that, but I am kind of intrigued with this kid and kind of the way that he's wired between the ears. And I love the physical makeup. So him last night, over the weekend, what he showed against the Commanders, I was kind of pumped up out of the 3. I'm like, all right, there's some stuff here that's kind of coming together maybe a little bit sooner than I thought. I know it's a preseason game, but I am fired up to see him this season. I will give you the first, I guess I'll go first crack here. I'll keep the LSU guys together. I'll go Daniels, Neighbors. That gives me $4 left. Give me Marshawn Lloyd. And how much? What do I have? $3?
Yeah.
I don't even know this kid, the third one, the tight end that I would be subjugated
Oh, that's
to.
Rick's favorite player.
That's on me. I'm sorry, Rick. I'll go with Sennett.
Yeah.
How can you not know him? My God. What do you do for a living?
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. Rick's turned on you.
10,000 guys to know coming out of high school. How can you not know?
Rick. I know Rick. Rookie move on my end, man.
Rick has turned on you. It only took 20 minutes. Welcome to the club, Coop. All right, Rick, who'd you come up with for your homework assignment? Get $10.
$10. Okay. I'm going to do this for less than 10.
True general manager speak. All right, the owner doesn't want to spend $10. What are you doing?
I'm going Daniels, Worthy. That's $4.
Daniels and Xavier Worthy at wide receiver. Okay.
That's then I'm going Blake Corum.
Blake Corum is $2 for the running back. And what else you got? So wait, let's do the math here. So you've done $6. You got $4 left.
Okay, and then since Coop here took my tight end, Sennett, who he doesn't even the hell know. He went to Kansas State, by the way, played very well in the first preseason game, was excellent down at the Senior Bowl.
He's a huge Sennett fan.
Since I still have $4 left, I'm going to cash it in on Bowers and say I can use. I'll spend my cap. $10.
Yeah, there you go. You can spend your cap. If you get Brock Bowers staring you in the face, you come back with Theo Johnson. You got some explaining to do.
Oh God, I didn't like him or Sanders. I would never do that.
All right. Yeah, I love Theo Johnson. I like Jatavian too. My team actually was the same one that Coop came up with, but I can mix it up. Let's go. No one took Caleb, right? Caleb. I'm going to take Caleb. I'm going to take. Oh boy. So, all right. I'll do Caleb. I'll do Rome. Oh boy. I'll do Blake.
I already used Blake, but go ahead.
And then, all right. I'll do Ced then. I mean, Ced. I called him Cedric Benson. Excuse me. I'll do Trey Benson. Rest in peace, Ced Benson. I'll do Trey Benson. I'll do Jatavian Sanders. So Caleb, Odunze, Trey Benson, Jatavian Sanders, just to mix it up.
Okay. At least you didn't go over the cap.
I didn't go over the cap. Producer Harry will keep us updated throughout the season about who has the best fantasy numbers. And then, Rick, you can win your $1 at the end of the year. How's that?
Oh, my God. That's a given.
All right. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll spend the last 15 minutes of Rick yelling at me about my mock draft right after this.
Saturday is big time on CBS. Number 2 Ohio State welcomes Akron into the Horseshoe. Then more college football in prime time with UCLA taking on Hawaii. Saturday on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
All right, mock draft time. And Coop, I'm going to let you start because you have only nice things to say. And even the things that aren't so nice will be nice compared to whatever Rick's about to say. So you can go with a player you liked, a player you thought was too high, one that's not on the list it should be, or any direction you want. The floor is yours, my friend.
I'll go with a pick that I liked. I'm going to go with Luther Burden at 18 to Los Angeles Chargers with Jim Harbaugh. You know, we like this kid coming out. I think he was the number 2 receiver in 2022 behind Evan Stewart, now with Oregon. And you know, the way that he plays, the way that Eli Drinkowitz kind of utilizes him, this was kind of like the big first NIL victory for Missouri, and it's kind of helped kind of like catapult that program to recruiting at a high level. But I like this kid. I like the demeanor at the catch point. I like the demeanor as a run after catch receiver that utilize him primarily out of the slot. I think you can do a lot of different things with him. Pair him up with a guy like Ladd McConkey. I think they've been trying to get the temperament of that room right for a while. They haven't been able to do that. But I like this kid. I like everything he's about. I like the way he's wired. He's really, like, you talk about a guy with some stuff in his neck. That is Luther Burden. So him at 18 is a pick that I like a lot.
So I've had Teteroa McMillan as my wide receiver 1 coming out of the summer, and Luther's number 2. How do you feel about that? Do you like Luther a little better than T-Mac?
No, I think you're on it there. You know, what was funny about T-Mac coming out of Servite, where he played with Noah Fafita, his quarterback, was this guy was a two-way player playing in a very competitive league there in California, maybe one of the best in the country. Was also a very skilled volleyball player as well. And those two were attached at the hip. The ball skills, the ability to adjust, the ability to win 50-50 balls consistently. I mean, he turned those into 90-10 balls at the high school level. The only really question we had about him was his speed. He was a long, fluid athlete, and the body type was a little bit slender. Now you watch him his first 2 years at Arizona, he's kind of answered all those questions. So I think for me, yeah, personally, maybe we had some questions about the speed. We probably overvalued that in the evaluation process a little bit. Luther was a guy that checked all those boxes, but Teteroa is the guy ultimately at the end of the day that I probably feel more comfortable with. You know, but no, I don't think you're off base there at all.
I had Teteroa going 15th to the Steelers, Rick, if you can believe that. I should also note that I had 5 quarterbacks going, which is on the high side. I think the over-under, I think you said 3 is the over-under, and I think that's closer to the truth. But I wanted to get some names in there so I could get ahead of the curve. Cam Ward and your guy, Connor Weckman, I think you like him a little more than I do. But what do you want to talk about first, Rick? What's on your mind?
I'll just say the pick I like the most.
Let's hear this.
We're all rainbows and butterflies and unicorns on this show.
Yeah.
I'm going with Will Johnson because you took him to the Commanders. And I think he's the most complete corner that I've seen in a while come out in this draft. And I understand we're talking about today and team needs can change, but the Commanders, in order for Dan Quinn's defense to go, he needs some shutdown corners like Diggs, like Bland turned out to be. Yeah. They had Gilmore last year. So to me, this is a no-brainer. They lost Kendall Fuller. They drafted Mike Sanderstill from Michigan last year, but he's just a nick. And right now, they're starting corners of St. Juice, Michael Davis, who they signed from the Chargers, and Emmanuel Forbes, who had his struggles because he weighs 135 pounds.
He gained 10 pounds. He's a 145 now.
Okay. So my favorite pick that you made in this mock, which was very hard, spent hours and hours studying this.
Thank you.
Was Will Johnson when you send him to the Commanders.
Hey, Coop, let me ask you about Will Johnson, because I had him number 1 on my big board, and I think Rick likes Mason Graham. If I held the gun to his head and made him pick, he would take Mason Graham first on his big board that doesn't exist. A cornerback's never gone first overall. Where are you on Will Johnson in terms of the athleticism, in terms of the athlete, and how he sort of ranks in this class?
He was a really tough eval coming out because we didn't have a ton of information on him. And, when we're projecting players 4 to 5 years down the line, it's an information game. So everything that you can collect from a multi-sport participation standpoint from what they do in track and field, Will Johnson was not one of those guys. And he was a really highly touted recruit coming out. That's one of those things where you got to balance kind of where everybody else sees him and kind of sort through that and try to figure it out. The 2 biggest misses that we'll end up having in this class, if you want to call it, that would be McMillan, who we just talked about, and will be Will Johnson. We have both those guys at 38 and 40. So the top first 10 picks outside of the first round. So we weren't that far off, but those were guys that we didn't have all the information on, especially when it came to speed, trying to figure that out. But he was always a super instinctive player that we really, really liked a lot. And watching the tape on him, I mean, if there's one knock, and Rick, you might roll your eyes here, but maybe a little bit of the burst to close and the recovery speed, playing, the deep third of the field, turn on the tape against Marvin Harrison. I mean, I think this guy's done some extraordinary things. Go back, watch it against Adunze, one of the best in the country. So I think technically sound, maybe in my mind, like when I think about, all right, who to compare him to just in terms of high floor ceiling players, guys that you would kind of put in that safe category would maybe be somebody like Pat Surtain, is kind of what I think about a little bit. So no, incredible player. And he's been very, very well coached in Michigan as well.
Rick, Patrick Surtain was my comp. What do you think? What's going on here?
Well, you and Coop had a private meeting, meeting without me in there. Mine was Christian Gonzalez because of the length and the movement skills.
Yeah, and actually, I think I told you don't care, but I'll let Coop know. I talked to some scouts that thought that Christian moved a little better than Will did, in terms of the short area quickness stuff and the fluid hips or whatever we call it these days. All right, Rick loves when I say fluid hips. Give me a pick that you thought was too high, Coop.
Yeah, I'm gonna regret this. The more tape I watch, I already regret it. I went with Kelvin Banks, and Banks was a guy that we had as a 5-star. He actually got the second to last spot coming out, and there was some conversation about making him the number 1 offensive tackle in the country. That year was actually Josh Connerly Jr. Out of Washington, now with Oregon. And a guy that, probably needs another year. I'm be pretty interested to kind of see where he's sitting at the end of the season. But Banks, was a guy that we always loved in the run game. And you can turn on the tape now at the collegiate level. That has not changed. I mean, he is an absolute terror. I think the only thing, and I am nitpicking here, the only question I had is maybe a little bit of the pass protection stuff. I think sometimes can get a little over himself, overextend a little bit. But outside of that, I mean, this kid, as clean as they come, he started every game since he's been at Texas. For the category of what we're talking about here, it doesn't make much sense because I can definitely see him going top 5. The other guy that I was actually thinking about was Will Campbell, and was a guy that we really liked. Ended up moving to, I think he ended up 66 for us. Thing I got hung up on was I thought he was a good athlete. I didn't think he was an elite athlete. I thought he was a super clean player. He had 33-inch arms coming out. He really struggled against some guys like Walter Nolan when we got to see him live throughout the combine circuit. You don't hold that over his head. But that's always something that kind of stuck in the back of my mind. Is this guy going to be a left tackle at the next level? He's proved that in the SEC. And, I think the way that he's wired, you can't really go wrong with a kid like him. I am kind of interested to see where he stacks up at the end of the day with the rest of these tackles.
Yeah, I didn't love Will Campbell as much as I don't know if Rick. I think Rick liked him a little bit more than I did. But Rick, I was when Coop was talking, I was like, Josh Connerly. I've heard that name somewhere before.
Yeah.
That was you.
Yeah, I like Josh Connerly.
Yeah, so you were on to him. You get with the first pick. Props for getting him first. Rick, any thoughts on one guy, you might have 5 guys who are too high.
5. I wish I only had 5.
All right, who you got? Let's go. Let's do it.
I got to go with Cam Ward. One, you have him going number 13, the Raiders, and I know Tom Telesco very well. He's not going to reach on a quarterback. Just sum it up.
Hold on. Sorry to interrupt you. Would he have reached on a quarterback at 13 had one of the Penix Jr. or Bo Nix been there, though?
I've heard rumors that they really liked Penix Jr.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
They would have taken Penix Jr. I don't know about Bo Nix. I didn't hear anything, but I know Penix Jr. was a guy they were hoping fell to them.
Okay.
So I'm going with Cam Ward. Understand at Washington State, he does have unique athletic ability. He's got a strong enough arm. I don't think he processes very well. To me, my comp was a little bit Tyrod Taylor, a little bit Malik Willis when he came out of Liberty. I didn't think this guy is worthy of a first-round pick at this point, and I know Tom Telesco, knowing him very well, would not reach at 13 to take a Cam Ward. It was just bizarro land to me that you would land him there.
They got to do something. I mean, unless one of these guys is going to turn to a Hall of Famer.
Dak Prescott.
Okay, well, look, you can talk me into that. All right, what else you got?
And then I went players left that deserved first round consideration.
Okay, I thought you had more on this list. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to get to 2 guys. I was kind of excited about. I went back and watched some of the tape on Patrick Payton, a big defensive end from Florida State, who was opposite of Verse last year, and I thought this guy had a chance, long and athletic, could maybe pop into the lower first round. And then I watched that Georgia Tech game, and to be honest with you, I about threw up.
I watched him too. It wasn't
anywhere near the quarterback. No. That was a major disappointment. So I took him off the list pretty quick.
That's okay. He was in Ireland. He doesn't play any more games in Ireland. He'll get back to the States. He'll be fine.
God, if we're have a team in Ireland, do not pick this kid at all.
All right. Who else you got?
I'm going to go with Kenneth Grant, the big D tackle from Michigan. I think they could have 4 first-rounders this year.
Oh, wow.
Big body, athletic. They were in a rotation. If Jenkins can go in the top 50 last year, I think this kid is higher ceiling than Jenkins because I think he's a little better inline pass rusher. He's 335 pounds. Big guys like this that can move, even though he was, and I went back and read, when we did on a previous podcast, I think I had him in the second or third round.
Yeah.
But the more I thought about it, and I really think this kid could be a kid that could jump into the first round because of his size and his athleticism, and he's not going to be in a rotation. I think he's going to be a little bit, get a lot more play time, and I probably undervalued him. Now, he's not going to be Aaron Donald, 82 sack a year guy, but he can get pressure on a quarterback for 335 pounds. And to me, he is more athletic and a better pass rusher than Sweat was when he came out of Texas last year.
Oh, right. Gotcha. I was doing the math on Sweat. Yeah. Okay. All right, you got a guy too, Coop, and I'm actually, we talked about this guy in summer scouting, and I liked him a lot. I didn't have him as a top 32 guy, but you think he has a chance?
Yeah, I think he has a chance. Walter Nolan, he was the number 2 player in 22 behind Travis Hunter, so a guy that we liked a lot coming out. What I thought was interesting about him going back and watching some of his snaps, I thought he really struggled in the Alabama game. I thought he did some good things against Tennessee and Ole Miss. They played him all over the place. DJ Durkin moved him around. I love his versatility. They played him the 1, the 3, the 5. I think the biggest thing for him is he can find a home at the 3 technique. He's quick twitch, explosive. He's got heavy hands. I think gets washed out too consistently in the run game, but I like his ability as an interior pass rusher. He's got some stuff to him, and I like the way he plays. He's got a motor. So that combination of physical ability with that type of play-to-play consistency is something that I look for. I like that with Walter Nolan. I think the biggest thing with him, staying healthy, staying on the field, he's got a big opportunity, all eyes on Ole Miss this year, and that's kind of been their crux in the past, has been the point of attack, especially defensively. Can they be good enough? He's going to have to be good enough. So I think he's got a chance. He's probably in that top 64 range loosely, but got a chance to kind of creep up into that back half of the top 32, maybe into the top 40.
Absolutely. I mean, it's late August as we sit here. He's unofficially 6'4", 290 defensive lineman. If you're listening and not watching. All right, Rick, That's it. You got some stuff to do. Episode
Cool.
170.
Thanks for adding to this podcast.
I know, right?
You're a breath of fresh air, to be honest with you.
Man.
Yeah. Cooper's
Sorry about
great.
not knowing who that tight end is. I'm very embarrassed, but we'll get it cleaned up next time.
Hey, we found one that he didn't know, Rick. One of your favorite players in Ben Sinnott. That's okay.
I was in auto draft mode there at the end with my $1 left.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. Episode 174 in the books. Special thanks to Cooper Petagna for joining us. We're going to have him on again, Rick, because he brings
it was fun.
He brings some smartness to the show that's much needed. So you can
check
out
smart arsonist.
That's what you're for. I don't know what my role is, but you can check Coop out at 24/7. He does a podcast with Andrew Ivan that's fantastic. In the meantime, thanks to my guy Rick. Thanks to Coop for joining us. Thanks to producer Harry for producing, and thanks to all you guys who watch and listen. We'll see you later in the week. Thursday, Rick, Jim Nagy, Senior Bowl is going to join us, so look out for that. We'll see you guys then.